USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents The Corner Bookstore, hosted by Red O'Laughlin. Step into a world where every story inspires. These pages come to life through the voices of authors from around the globe. Written by our global community of TV show hosts and best-selling authors, these works span genres, generations, and geographies, united by the power of storytelling. Discover your next favorite book and meet the minds behind the work. Thursdays, only on USA Global TV and Radio.
Red O'Laughlin here on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Welcome. Today is the first show of three back-to-back that I do. And to get started, I noticed that at the beginning of the show all those different books. Well, those are books from people that have been here on our studio and been co-hosts over the time, part of our staff. So it gives you an idea how much we value books, value the author field and everything dealing with that. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. I consider myself a bit of a translator of complexity, especially when it comes to the human body. If you treat a cause, you can generally fix a problem. If you're treating symptoms, that makes it more difficult. I have a new book coming out here very shortly, hopefully June, July, called Aging Sucks, and I'm going to have some webinars that are going to be supplementing that accordingly. But what I do is to provide information that is actionable. Take it to your doctor, talk to him about it. And so that's a little bit about me, but let's get into our guest today. Ben Leman, very well known here in Texas, fourth generation Texan, former Texas judge, former Texas representative, I think 6 years. He is in Grimes County, just a little north of where I'm at down here in the Houston area. And Ben is coming out with a book on Scottish clans back in the 1600s, 1700s. So, Ben, please join me up here on stage. I'd love to chat with you today about that.
Well, hello, Red. Good morning, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
First thing I want to get to, fourth generation Texan. I mean, I ran my boss way back when I was interviewing him. He was a fifth generation Texan, and that was 30 years ago. So I'm sure there must be more, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, wow. My wife was born in Texas. My grandson was born in Texas. My great-grandson was born in Texas, but my daughter was born in California. How did that happen? Well, things happen, you just don't know. I got an invitation to Vietnam and I was on the way there, and, life is life. Yeah. But anyway, when you decided that you wanted to write a book, your background in Texas, history, business, ranching, I mean, very well developed, very broad background. Why Scottish clans?
Yeah, well, it started off with my family history. My ancestors, my fifth great grandfather fought and died in the American Revolution. He immigrated from Scotland, actually from Scotland to Ireland, then to America back right before the Revolution. So that's kind of, that little story is initially what got my interest.
How do you research something like that?
Well, it started off with actually an inspiration from a friend of mine. Basically, I was visiting a friend of mine in 2013 who was on his deathbed, and he was dying of pancreatic cancer. And it was the last time I would visit him. And so I At the end of that meeting, he called me or in that discussion, he called my name, and I walked back to his bed. He was unconscious, and then he kind of came to, and he told me, Ben, between the tines, and he was real alert and sat up, and I said, what, between the tines? What do you mean, John? And he said, between the tines, that's what you're going to call your first book. And I mean, that was a short summary of the conversation right there. But from that point on is when I started digging deep on trying to figure out. I committed to then I would write a book, but didn't know what it was going to be. But that's where I started doing my research, and I wanted to do something important, something that was meaningful, that would reach a lot of people and connect with a lot of individuals, not just even in the United States, but around the world. And I believe this story does that.
Okay. From your background in a variety of things, obviously you have a writing habit of sorts. When did you start writing in general? And then you'd say, okay, fine, this is something I'm really talented at.
Well, you'd be surprised. My writing was very limited prior to this novel. I mainly did business writing, did a lot of it, but it was mainly focused on business. And it was in 2013, of course, when that story I just told you occurred. And all along, I was trying to figure out this story. But what I really did to hone in my writing skills is this is my second novel that I wrote. The first novel I wrote, I never intended to publish. It was just a mental exercise, and just to kind of figure out my process for writing, to try to hone it in and understand what my talents or my lack of talents with respect to writing, and improve on those weaknesses before I set off to write this big book that I just wrote.
So you wrote a book and it's sitting there idle somewhere, may or may
Yes.
not ever get published, not important right now, but it may come back down the road. Okay, is the book that we're talking about now one that will be followed on by other books in a series, and we're going to take this thing up to the 2000s, or what is your kind of long range plan for this one?
Yeah, so the long range plan. So the first answer is yes. This is part of a trilogy. The trilogy's called Forged in Blood, and this book is book one, Between the Tines. That it comes out April 28th, and so it is a part of a small, series of 3 books. There, a trilogy. But the long range plan is the underlying concern, or the underlying theme of this book, which unites a lot of people from various countries. This is not just a historical lesson about Scotland. It's really about what was going on in people's lives in various countries. Because here in America, as you know, we all have ancestors, and the vast majority of our ancestors were from the old world, somewhere other than Native America. Obviously, Native Americans are the exception to that. But this story answers that fundamental question, no matter what country your ancestors were from. And that question is, what was going on that was so difficult or such a struggle that these individuals were willing to leave their homeland, everybody they knew, and start over in this new world, in the colonies at a time when it was very difficult to exist. I mean, food, water, infrastructure, shelter. I mean, there was very little there. And so that's a big leap. And in today's world, it might be equivalent to, starting a colony on the moon or something like that. It's a pretty big leap for us. So I think it's a fascinating topic. And my long range vision is to take this Scottish trilogy this trilogy based in Scotland, and replicate it from various countries during the same time period, in hopes that it's a uniting factor, a uniting mechanism for people in our country, but not just in America, but around the world, because I think this story does unite the old world with the new world.
A lot of things have changed in a few hundred years, particularly with language. Are you trying to keep a fair amount of the old Gaelic kind of language in the book, or is this pretty much modernized?
Well, it's pretty much modernized. I went back and forth on that. It was I considered that question heavily, and also read other novels, other books to better be able to better make that decision to answer that question. And what I determined was I did not enjoy the novels that were heavy on the Gaelic language. They made it very difficult to understand and follow along when you tried to understand the deeper meaning of what the author is trying to tell you. That's what it made it difficult for me to really follow easily. So it made it a little challenging. So I went the other route. I made it modernized and used words here and there that sprinkled in to make the reader understand where they are and feel like they're part of the Scottish culture there. But I went with the modern route.
It's interesting because just a couple hundred years ago, you mentioned the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, I believe it was. Back then, a lot of our English was somewhat still dominated a bit by German. I remember reading some books not that long ago, and I said, okay, fine. I know in German, I was stationed there toward the end of the 90s, and the German language capitalizes their nouns. Well, back in the United States, when we were writing the Constitution, a lot of our nouns were capitalized. And one of the German characters is a double S, but it's a single character. And that was also one of those things that was common in our language. So just literally within 100 or so years, that all disappears and become more modernized. Right. And so it evolves. And of course, how many words do we have today that we never even thought of 30 years ago? They just same words, different meanings, even new words. I remember when the atomic bomb word came out, boom, boom, atomico, I think was Spanish or something. And it's interesting how a lot of those things change. And I can just imagine delving into some of those. Okay, what in the world is that? Right. And whether you're talking about food or clothing or armor or weaponry or whatever it may happen to be, and even the customs and the cultures back then with regard to land ownership and serfdom and everything. So I can imagine that's just a mind-blowing research task that is just unending.
Yes, it was a very difficult task to research the culture at the time. For sure, the backdrop of the story takes place during the War of Three Kingdoms, which that's not what the story's about, and it's not the main stage even that the story takes place on. But it is the backdrop. And so understanding the complexities that went into the culture that understanding the complexities of the war with Three Kingdoms that affected the culture and the motivations for the historical events that occurred was very difficult. It began with understanding the War of Three Kingdoms, which was difficult at first to understand. It really was. You had to really dig down deep and understand how did that work. So, yes, it was quite a big project to do the historical research on.
Some of the people we've had on here in the past have had a little caricature or image of one of their characters, so that when they're in that mode of talking to that person, they can look at that picture, that image, and get a feeling. And so you kind of change back and forth. Did you have any difficulty at all changing mindsets for the characters as you're having conversations?
I did initially. So my process that I went through to write this novel, I wrote my first draft, and this is a full-length novel. It's 140,000 words, so it's pretty heavy lift. It's a complex story, and throughout my research and as I started to piece together the motivations and implement the themes that I wanted the readers to take away from the novel, the main questions that I wanted them to ask themselves, as I started to implement those, I realized the characters I started off with weren't a fit for the story. And so I had to rewrite it, and I had to completely change the characters' personalities. And with as you know, as an author, when you go back and you try to change something that complex to that degree, that's a heavy lift. And I rewrote it not once but twice. And so my characters, that I ended up with are very different than I started off with. And so and it was all in my attempt to get that dialogue that you're talking about right, to match the personalities with the seriousness of the underlying themes and the content of the story, but at the same time making it very entertaining to keep people engaged and interested.
Okay, so they didn't have a whole lot of electricity back there and other what we consider comforts of life. And so you're in an area where you have a candle, you have other things, you have open windows, you have very bitter winters. I mean, these are all things that are there as part of not only the character development, but the plot development, the time development, the location. All of those things have to intertwine and yield, as you say, something that the reader can absorb and learn from. So as you're putting yourself back, almost 400 plus years, how do you view? I mean, obviously you can read from other books, but how do you actually put yourself in a location in Scotland or some other country and say, okay, this is what I see, this is what I feel? That's kind of a hard thing, I think, for most of us authors to actually put the words into that feeling.
Right. Well, one thing I did when I, really got interested in this story and started to do my research, I traveled to Scotland. I went there. I've been there 3 times, and I traveled the Cow Peninsula, Southwest Scotland, where all these historical events that are in my novel took place. And so all the battles are real. They all happened. I visited the except for one, I apologize, it was the very first one, but it was consistent with battles of the time. But the locations are all actual places. I visited many of these locations. I went to the multiple castles that take place or that are in my main play a major part in my novel. And I looked at their views. I walked around their castle grounds. I got a feel for the landscape all over Southwest Scotland, and really feel like I connected with, what did they see when they woke up? What when they looked out at the fjords of Scotland, what were they sensing? And so I tried to put myself in their shoes and take that home with me and incorporate it in my novel.
That's above and beyond. Absolutely. No doubt about that. I know some things are very subtle. It's like, you open the door and you smell something. And that's a big deal, because you open the door the next day and it may be gone, it may not be gone, may be there. And so there's just those little things that kind of creep in and out, especially when you're doing a lot of traveling. We're going to have a break here in about 2 minutes. So let me go ahead and get first into, how long did it actually take you to write the book?
It took me a full year to write or complete my first final draft. I rewrote it, that's including the write and rewrite twice. So 1 full year there. And that's with a lot of, I was rolling up my sleeves and getting after it. That doesn't include some of the research, obviously, prior to that, but that is from when I started with my first word writing the novel to the final end of the project.
How many editors did you employ?
3. I had, 3 official that were paid, many that were not paid. I had a developmental editor, I had a copy editor, and line editor. I had those 3 are the major roles that were played, but then I also had people that were just very talented that kind of connected well with the story. They were talented from an editor perspective, and some of them became test readers, and so they really helped me with the finer details of honing in my story, or the character development, things like that.
It's interesting. Almost every author I have come on talk about their developmental editors improve their writing skills significantly because of all the things that they didn't see when they were writing, but all of a sudden became so apparent that needed attention. And so that was a major improvement in their writing ability, was being able to really and truly work with the developmental editor.
Yeah, I think that, but probably the most important ingredient is just being honest with yourself, in my opinion, because I think it's easy to say, well, I created this and I think it's wonderful. But you don't understand what I'm trying to get across. Those kinds of thoughts go through your mind, but the ability to step outside of yourself and look back at your story of what you created and read it as an objective reader, not as the author, and then have that conversation with a developmental editor and say, you know what, man, I missed it. I have to really try again.
Ben, we're going to take a short break here. We'll be right back after commercial break. So stand by.
All right.
Markets shift overnight. Technology rewrites industries. Leadership decides who survives and who scales. Real stories, real people, real business. Welcome to the Business Show on USA Global TV and Radio, reaching audiences in more than 60 countries and home of the YouTube Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. This is not theory. This is not recycled commentary. This is business in motion. Founders, CEOs, investors, strategists, operators, the people building companies, moving capital, driving innovation. We go beyond headlines into decisions, beyond noise into strategy, beyond trends into execution, growth, disruption, artificial intelligence, global markets, leadership under pressure. Hosted by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck and Al Sini, The Business Show delivers direct, unfiltered conversations with the leaders shaping the future of enterprise. If you're launching, scaling, investing, or redefining your next move, this is your front row seat. No spin, no scripts, no surface talk. Real stories, real people, real business. This is clarity in motion. This is momentum. This is The Business Show on USA Global TV and Radio. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Original music score Yefe Tang. Videography and production Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form are strictly prohibited.
O'Laughlin here. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. My guest today is Ben Leman, and Ben is writing a book on historical fiction in Scotland back in the 1600s. Ben, please join me back up here on stage.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Great. Let's see if we can pull up a copy of, maybe we get our production engineer pull up a copy from your website of your book cover. Let's talk about that just very briefly, if it's possible. Do you have a copy of your book next to you?
I have it in my head.
Oh, there we go. I figured that this would probably be the easiest. Okay, tell us a little bit about the book cover.
Yeah, well, so, I went through many renditions before I settled on this one with the designer for the book cover. And I felt at the end, this book cover in particular hits home. It hit the spot. And what I'm trying to get across, as you can see, it's a little bit granular, like a painting. So I'm trying to date it a little bit as opposed to the modern high definition type book covers. You can see it's the Scotland, you have a tartan there and the swords. That kind of dates the novel a little bit and gives somebody the idea of what they're looking at enough to hopefully turn the book over and read the back. And on the back, you'll see there's a little bit of a smaller scene of a battle, and that kind of the idea is that the battle is not what this book is about, but it's just a small portion of the book. So I didn't want to have it on the front of the cover to make that the dominant theme, because I don't think it matches what the story is really about at all. So yeah, that tartan that you see is Clan Lamont. That's the tartan there, the old their ancient tartan, and so. It's just enough I look at that cover and I hope the readers see depth. I hope they see intrigue, and they see enough of clues about what this book is about to turn it over to the back.
Ben, one of the things we as writers love to do is write and talk. But one of the things we don't do very well is market. And when did you start marketing this book?
Well, I started marketing it after, just very recently. I barely started marketing. I focused, I drew upon my historical management style for my business background and approached writing and marketing this book in the same manner. I have a professional, group that are helping me market this novel, and we're just really getting cranked up here. We just finished the review copy and distributed out for the reviewers here in February, and so that's when our marketing really began. We were laying some fundamental things underneath that before that, but really that's when we first really got after it.
Okay, what are you using any social media outlets?
Yes, we have the full range of we have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so we have that. We have our website. We're doing email blasts, recruiting our email list to do email updates as well. We have a website. I started doing interviews, being willing to do interviews after I completed that review copy. So now that now that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing on the marketing side of the book. It's ready to be marketed, and I'm going to push it pretty hard and see where it goes.
Did you use much AI at all in any of your book development?
No, there's absolutely no AI in any of the book. The entire story, there's no AI. None of my editors used AI. I did not use any AI for, drafting the book or anything like that. So not even to try to get ideas on drafting the book. I did all my own research and developed that story from the old fashioned way.
Are you doing any videos?
When you say videos, you talking about for marketing, or what are we talking about? Yes.
Yeah, 30-second, 1-minute videos for your book.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to do some of that. We're going to do a blog, and it's going to be on. What we're going to focus, among many things. One of the main focuses of our blog and podcast is going to be to put to focus on the differences between actual history, or what was available to learn about history, and then what was stated in the story, and understand what's history, what's not. There's lots of significant events there, and I think my readers so far have been very interested in that subject, was, what was actually historical versus the story.
I think Steve Berry is one who does that at the end of his books. He talks about which events actually happened and which ones he created. And I find that as a reader to be very beneficial, that, okay, this thing really happened and that was the real people there, or he created it from scratch. So that I'm going to give you kudos for, because that's nice to know information that really bonds you with your readers a lot.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gives your readers a flavor for your integrity of your story. The goal there is to be honest with your readers, right? And not keep them guessing. You don't want people misunderstanding actual history, but there's a big component of actual history that's very difficult to figure out, and that is the motivators for history. We understand documentation with respect to actual historical events, and that exists, and through research you can find a lot of that. But what you can't find much on is why people did what they did. And through piecing together little historical events, they were at A, and then they went to B and C, and you can kind of start piecing together some theories on motivations. And that's a topic that I think really grabs people's interest that really are engaged in this type of novel.
And it's interesting. Many people say that history is written by the winners, that whatever happened to the losers is lost forever. But that's not always the case, but it seems to be a predominant one. AI, I mentioned earlier, is something as simple as a spell checker. It's a tool. You can use it any way, shape, or form. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of deep dives into the human body using AI. But I also found that within literally 3, 4, 5 minutes, I can create a 60-second video talking about some aspect of my book that a year ago I wouldn't even have thought possible. And so that AI tool may not necessarily be something that you're using to write your book today, but it might actually be a very valuable tool as part of your marketing campaign, because there's just so many of these little, literally you give it here's a 35-second summary of your book, and boom, the AI goes and finds all these images, and voila, you have something that's there, and you can put it out anywhere. So just something to give some thought to.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not opposed to AI with respect to marketing. That's just business, right? That's the business side, marketing it. That is a tool, just like you mentioned. It's the creation of the story where I did not use any AI, but certainly intend to use AI moving forward on the marketing. That's going to have to happen in today's world, to compete to begin with. But I totally agree. But I do want to. You mentioned something about the history, gets written by the winners. And that's one theme within my novel here. The clan lament is on the side of history that gets forgotten. It's not a well-known clan. It was well established, very historical, thousands of years in Scotland and Ireland. And so but it's not one that's very well known. So part of this is giving voice to a clan that had their voice taken away.
That's always important. Always, always. Any consideration to having your trilogy done in foreign languages?
I don't know about that. We'll have to play that by ear. I think Scotland in today's world, modern day Scotland is not like everybody's walking around talking Gaelic. Full blown. It's pretty focused on English, and so. But I think they do like that heavier culture of Gaelic type, call it modern day Gaelic terminology. And so maybe there's some opportunity there. But if in other countries, I think it's going to be a wait and see. If it gains traction where, this concept of freedom and opportunity and this crossroads that my main character arrives at, some countries, I think it really will connect with better than others. And so there is some potential there, I believe, to have it translated.
Well, I know 5 years ago, I was considering doing a couple of my books, and the cost was exorbitant. And then I've noticed here in probably last year, a company called Fiverr.com. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not. FIVE, like 5, RR.com. They have translators there that have done many, many books in Portuguese and Spanish and Chinese and German, whatever. And it's a strict number of words. Now, obviously, you got 140,000 words. That's kind of an expensive book to do, but still the same. If I have a book that's 5,000 words or 15 or 20, that may be something to me I can do. But it might be something, depending on how successful your books are, to say, is that even a business plan to consider?
Yeah. I mean, I think I do. I'm open to it. But when you mentioned that, it made me think of like one of my favorite books, With Fire and Sword, Heinrich Sienkiewicz. It's a Polish book, bestseller for 100 years in Poland. And it had several translations into English. And I've read 2 of them. One of them I did not care for, did not connect well with the book. It was written, in Polish originally, but translated into English. And then I found Kuzniak, I think is his name, Kuzniak. And he was the translator that did it into modern day English. And oh my gosh, it's one of the best books I've ever read, in my opinion. I love it. And I've read it, the whole series 3 times in the last 25 years. And so it's a very well done. So I think you got to have the right the person that's translating it, or, it's got to be done well for it to move over there and have the same effect.
Ben, you're absolutely right, because a simple word in a foreign language may not translate well into English, and vice versa. And so you have to have that fluency in both languages to understand how that concept is being developed in the book and what it really means to the reader, as opposed to just being some words. And that's critical. It really truly is.
It is critical. It's hard enough to do in the same language, right? You know, when I'm working with a developmental editor, and and they're trying to explain to me what they think, the concern is with something I wrote, and I'm like, no, but that's not what I'm trying to say, So it
And
gets,
you're dealing in English.
yeah, right. It's hard enough when both people are from the same country.
It's an interesting development writing a book. You mentioned you had another book. Once you get this first one done, you're starting on the second one. Any thoughts at all about going back and just dumping that first one on the market, see what might happen?
When you say dump the first one on the market, what do you mean?
You said you had written a book earlier that was not going to.
Oh, I thought you meant the first one of the trilogy. I'm sorry.
No. Sorry about that.
No, it was more of just a mental exercise of how to establish my process for my approach to writing the real novel. And it was a different genre. It's not one that I was extremely passionate about. It was more about the process, more of like a thriller type, action type deal, adventure story. But it was one that I had to develop a process for, and had to do a little bit of research as well, but nothing as in depth as this. So I'm shifting forward to book 2 next.
Okay. So what kind of time frame are you looking at book 2 and book 3?
Well, I've started book 2. I've written a couple of the first chapters just while it's real fresh on my mind, the end of book 1 and the beginning of book 2. And I really wanted to connect those two while everything is real fresh. But I've began my research, and the research takes a long time. It does take a while. And this book 2 is just as complex, and it's a lot going on in it. I'm excited to write it. But I need to develop the skeleton and identify the dots in my story, the outline that I need to connect and weave the tale. And then, obviously I need to understand, how the themes that I incorporated into book 1, how am I going to make those flow through book 2 and continue those on, because it's a trilogy. So the beginning is book 1, ends at the end of book 3. So I've got to make sure I get that right as well. And so it's going to take a little bit of time. I'd say 1.5 years, 2 years. It's not going to be a 1-year project, I don't think, at this point, because I'm going to be focused a lot on marketing book 1 as well.
How do people get in touch with you? How do they buy your books? And when is your book going to be released?
So get in touch with me. The point of contact is benlemanauthor.com, BenLeman, author.com. From there, you can get in contact. You can get in contact with me in whichever means makes most sense to you. Social media links are all on there, and as well as our email registration process there. You can click on the link there to pre-order the book, available on Amazon. It'll be available. It is available right now digitally, but through my website, Kindle. But it is also going to be available on paperback to pre-order, and then of course we're going to have an audio book as well once we release it on April 28th. April 28th of this year is the release date.
Ben, thank you so very much for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to our next one.
Yes, sir. Likewise. I appreciate it very much. I enjoyed it. It was great. Thank you for your time and interest in my novel. I appreciate that.
Well, and again, a 4th-generation Texan, Ben Leman. Red O'Laughlin here. We're getting ready to conclude our show today on the Corner Bookstore. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a plug here toward the end. I primarily write on longevity, age-related issues, aging in general. But my next book coming out is going to delve into the hallmarks of aging, pathways of disease, the hallmarks of health. It's called Aging Sucks. And it's going to get into what really and truly helps you not age, in other words, decelerate that process, keep you healthy, vital, and just ready to go until you're retired and just enjoying life in general. So Brett O'Laughlin here, concluding the Corner Bookstore today. I'll be on The Wise Ones here in about 21 minutes on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Take care, y'all. Bye now.
Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? In a world quick to judge, one book dares to reveal the hidden cost of silence. Discover Holy but Harmful, The Silent Sin of Judgment, How Hidden Judgments Destroy Relationships and Damage Lives by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. The Amazon #1 bestseller that's transforming the way we understand ourselves and the way we see others. Pick up the companion workbook to uncover your own hidden judgments and learn how to break free from them. Available now on Amazon and at fine bookstores worldwide.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.